What's going on YouTube? Welcome to another oil painting demonstration live stream. Today is going to be a very special live stream. We are going to be painting the portrait of a professional pool player. Not just a professional pool player, but a professional pool player that I met in the Billiard Academy in Alexandria, Virginia, Street Lights Billiards Academy. His name is Georgie, and he was gracious enough to let me paint his portrait here on YouTube. His Instagram is linked in the description box of this video, so you can go ahead and check him out, follow him. So we're going to get started here with raw umber. I'm using raw umber to draw, and I'm kind of figuring out the placement of the head. Top of the head somewhat roughly there. I don't want it to match with the top of the canvas. And at the bottom, right about there, his neck is going to be here. So very much we're following in the footsteps of the great masters of the past. You know, painting not just portraits of people, but portraits of professionals in their fields. And it's such a honor to be able to do this. Also, the brush is a little bit more timid than usual. I'm usually moving the brush around like really fast. But we're going to treat this with the same level of respect and care that we do with every other painting demonstration, with a little bit extra today. Hey Anna, welcome, welcome. What's going on, Henry? Rodriguez, how do I guard my privacy? Well, it's kind of a tough question for anybody on the internet, really. Best thing I guess I would suggest is don't use the same password for everything and change your passwords frequently. And my passwords are so safe, I don't even know them. I forget them pretty much almost all the time. Get locked out of my accounts like all the time. But anyway, we are drawing with raw umber and placing the big shapes as simple as possible. The axes for the eyes are going to be here, so it's going to be eyebrows. Eyes are going to be somewhere over there. Nose about here. Back of the head is going to be roughly back here. And we will put in a background color, unlike how we did last time. So I'm going to go with more of a full composition with this one. But yeah, guarding your privacy is kind of a big one, especially like the way that things are going on the internet. So it's good to be aware of different ways to do that. So very quickly here, just getting the light and shadow shapes drawn in. I like to draw with raw umber. Hey Linda, thanks for watching from Arizona. I like to draw with raw umber because it is a very kind of like transparent color that is not so transparent, like sap green or alizarin, but it's transparent enough that it allows me to move the paint around. Unlike with acrylic, with oil paint, you can draw just like you would with a charcoal. Same kind of concept. So again, shout out to Georgie, professional pool player, whom we are painting his portrait today. This is a 9x12 cotton canvas that was toned neutral gray before starting the stream. The tone is an acrylic tone. And then I'll go over the colors once we start to get into color, which will be pretty soon. With oil paint, I like to sketch just enough. I don't like to go overboard with the drawing because then it becomes kind of like filling in the blanks. Yeah, I do play pool, just not very well. I started playing pool 2 years ago, and yeah, not very good, but meet a lot of awesome people at the academy that I go to, so it makes it worth it, including meeting professionals like Georgie. Let me tell you something. Billiards is such a difficult game. I mean, all sports are difficult, but I can't imagine the dedication that Georgie put into it to get to the professional level. I really can't imagine like how much time and energy, money, efforts that goes into that. Okay, so we've got the big shapes roughly blocked in. And in the beginning it's going to look kind of like a robot, so don't be too alarmed by that. Do all of my hobbies start with a P? Well, I would hope painting is not a hobby at this point. I've been doing it for half of my life now. But yeah, I mean, pool is the only thing really that I do that I would consider a hobby. But yeah, interesting. I'm using orange ochre. I did say I would explain the colors now. So this is Rublev orange ochre. So I've added this to the palette for today because it's a richer, kind of thick, darker, warm earth color that's going to go really well, as you can see there. It's going to go really well with lead white. This is lead white. So lead white from Michael Harding, and then we have two Rublevs. We've got an orange ochre, and then this one is an Italian brown ochre. So we've got some pretty expensive colors in here. Hey Giselle, painting with, of my friend. Oh, you mean from last week? It went well. DeWeet, his name. Yeah, he liked it. I showed it to him yesterday. He's the captain of my 9-ball league that I'm in on Tuesdays. So again, this is Italian brown ochre. I'm using more earth colors with this. So pretty much colors that would have been available back in Rembrandt's time. Working on a neutral gray here. Pretty early on, when you're going to introduce a background color, you want to put that in early instead of kind of build your way up towards it. So you have something to relate your colors to. This is a bigger brush. This is, let's see, Linda, you wrote, are you using round bristle? These are filberts. I'm going to use a little bit of medium for the background. The medium is Neo McGilp. It is a gel-like medium. So a nice kind of warm, neutral gray is what we're going to use for the background. Very kind of old master type aesthetic. So you just want kind of a hint at the background. Of course, you want the dark of the hair, so this is going to be black, alizarin, umber, or not umber, it's Italian brown ochre, a little bit of terra verte, so a lot of earth colors. What is an earth color? An earth color is a natural pigment as opposed to a synthetic one, but there's nothing wrong with using a synthetic pigment, of course. Oh, did I go? Oh, yeah, I did. I forgot. Yeah, on Saturday it was. Yeah, you remembered. Thanks. Yeah, I went all the way to Baltimore, so I drove over an hour. But luckily, there wasn't that much traffic. So yeah, I finally got to paint from life. And then you know what? I posted something on the internet. I posted the picture, and I also kind of went on a rant and said, why don't groups like that exist in Northern Virginia? And someone actually commented about a group that does exist in Northern Virginia. So this Thursday, I'm going to be going there. So those of you watching that have been, attending all of the streams, tomorrow's stream is going to be earlier in the day, so it's going to be 12 o'clock my time. And I know that the majority of you watch these videos after the fact, but anyone that is going to be waiting for tomorrow's live stream, it's going to be at 12 my time, 12 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time. That's because the art group meets at 6, so I won't be able to, do the stream and then make it there. So this combination of Italian brown ochre and orange ochre, these are very useful earth colors, as you can see there. They work as kind of like natural skin colors. So we're gonna have a light brush and a dark brush. Keep your shapes simple and easy, so that when the time comes to make changes, and it always does, those changes are simple and easy to manage. Now we're drawing with the paint, so there should be no surprises here that it's going to look, a little bit not human at first, which is going to be the awkward stage. So how was everyone's weekend? Let me know how everything went for you. Everything went quite well for me, even though I'd drive all the way to Baltimore to go painting from life, but looks like I may actually get the opportunity to do that closer to home. And in the beginning, the painting is going to look nothing like the model. And remember, likeness is nothing more than the confirmation of an accurate drawing. So you don't need to worry about likeness really at all. Focus on your shapes. Focus on the big picture. Whether you're working with lines or with mass. This is working with mass. Back to the ochre. Hey Patricia, thanks for watching from Alabama. Welcome, welcome Patricia. Hey May, how you doing? Let's see. Giselle. You said you would have missed it. Oh, I'm glad you're planning your day around it. Oh, thank you. That's a big honor for me that you're doing that. And a big question that I get these days, now that I'm doing multiple materials, is how does, something like pastel help my oil painting? And it does a lot, because I'm thinking more about planes in ways that I never did before. And also how you build, like going right across a form like that, cutting across different shapes is something that I did do a lot of before, but now there's a lot more fluidity. I think you're more aware of your planes. Hey Jeanette, thanks for watching from Boston. I hear there's a really good art scene over there. So once again, everyone, we're painting the portrait of a professional pool player. A really big milestone for me, a big accomplishment for me to be able to, paint a portrait of someone, that's a professional in their field that I met in person. It's different from just painting a picture of someone that, is online. It's a whole different thing. It's an awesome thing. A little bit of ultramarine blue for the facial hair. Yeah, and so far everything has been accepted pretty well at the academy, the Billiard Academy. Everyone seems to like the portraits that I do of them. Of course, I have to explain to everyone that it's not it's not supposed to look exactly like a photograph, but have somewhat, of a likeness of the model. Hey, Andre. Thanks for watching from Bulgaria. Welcome, welcome. Oh, you know the guy I'm drawing? Really? Hey, you call him Gigi. Hey, small world here. Awesome. Welcome, welcome. You know Georgie. Do you play pool? Really cool, man. Really cool. Thanks for watching from Bulgaria. Welcome, Shavu. A little bit of cerulean blue in with the earth colors. So again, I'm using lead white. This is orange ochre, Italian brown ochre. These are natural pigments, but I'm also putting in a little bit of cerulean blue. Natural pigments from Rublev. They are more expensive paints than usual, but what's nice about them is they have a grit. I don't know if you can see it. You can see pieces of it like that. See, as I do that, there's pieces of it. So there's a little bit of a grit to it, kind of like pastel, which is has a nice kind of feel to it. Hey, Georgie, welcome, welcome. Hey, this is your portrait we're painting here. But don't worry, it's gonna look more human in a little bit. But in the beginning, it's very abstract. And that's Dion from the Academy, of course. Thanks for sharing the stream, Dion and Georgie. Awesome. Really cool stuff going on here, everybody. Thanks, Dion. Really cool stuff going on, everyone. And of course, I chose oil paint for Georgie's painting because I'm most comfortable with oil paint. Especially when you're doing a painting. Well, that's not necessarily true. I'm actually quite comfortable now with pastels. In fact, on Saturday, if any of you follow my Instagram, on Saturday I brought my pastels to the painting session. My friend in Baltimore. So the sad thing is, I actually ended up dropping my pastels, everybody. I didn't know that this could happen, but look at my soft pastels. Look at my beautiful yellow ochre. I dropped it. Shameful, shameful. But I had to go to the store today to buy another yellow ochre. And I am going to mess around a little bit with the higher quality pastels. So, but none of that just yet, because I need as much practice as I can get with each new material that I use. Now we're going to throw in a little hint for where the eyes are going to fit. And this is just going to be for the sake of placement, not to be confused with the final drawing for the eyes. Okay, so every time you do something like that, you have to step back, double check the angle of the eyes, which is more important. You can push an eye up, down, left, right, whatever, but as long as you have an idea of the angle. Cerulean blue is a nice, kind of expensive, we're using a lot of expensive colors here, by the way, but it's a really nice color to sneak in a tad bit of blue into a color. It doesn't have very high tinting strength like a phthalo, but it has more thickness to it like a cobalt blue, which is also another natural occurring blue. Now we're going to go in with the dark light. Now we're going to have 3 brushes. We're going to have 3 size 2. So Italian brown ochre, like the orange ochre. And we're going to go in with the dark light. So remember, the dark light is the value just as light terminates into shadow. And it's important to get this down really quickly when you're working with shapes like this, as opposed to tippy-toeing around it. Gotta be kind of bold with it. Don't be afraid. Again, this is something that pastel has helped me a lot with. A little bit of cadmium red. Hey Andre, you do play pool. Georgie lets you win sometimes. That's cool. Oh, thanks, Georgie. I'm glad you liked the stream. Yeah, I've been painting for about 16 years. 15, 16 years, so. The pool, I've only been playing for 2 years. So, definitely not much of a knowledgeable person in that. But it is great to be able to, do something, having done it for so many years, and be able to, share that experience with people. Must be a similar feeling that you have, Georgie, as a professional. Being able to meet the rest of us that, are motivated by that. So now we're carving out some shapes around the nose. We're going to go in with the background brush for the back side of his head. And now we're going to close in towards the smaller shapes. It's been under 30 minutes, so that's pretty good. Going to use kind of like a Rembrandt type color. So this kind of like earthy, neutral gray. A little bit of yellow ochre. Perfect. So that's the color that I want. And this is really important in the beginning, to establish your composition such that all of the colors are now going to relate to one another. And it also helps you to draw with. So see how I'm using that to draw? Get the angle of his head. Now I cut a little too much, but that's fine. So that's one of the differences between oil paint and acrylic, is that this remains wet the entire time. So when you cut into something, you have to be mindful of, you know, like the color not kind of like bleeding into the background as it can do. Whereas with acrylic, it just kind of stays there because it dries right away. Gonna leave a little bit of room there for my pinky. That's why I'm leaving a gap there. So I'll be resting my pinky there. Hey Mark L. Welcome, welcome. Okay, so now we're gonna start to subdivide the planes. Once the shadows are well established in terms of the shape, the relative position, in a simplified way, like that, then we can move into subdividing planes. So remember, I've got 3 brushes here. And now we're going to go for the planes surrounding the eye sockets, then the maxilla, I know it's a little strange at first. What you do to one side, you want to do to the other side. Doing this allows you to develop a nice thick layer of paint. Now, because I used lead white and Rublev's earth colors, these pigments they're thicker. There's more pigment to oil ratio. So there's going to be a thickness to this paint that you wouldn't see in something like, say, an acrylic. But is actually something that you will notice in pastel. Pastel actually does have that kind of richness to it. So we're going to use that kind of Rembrandt convention. Dark against light. Light against dark, so light against dark. Dark against light. And make sure to focus on the silhouette of the face, especially when your primary concern is the likeness. So you're seeing me paint as if I were to be doing something like a commission. You know, if someone were paying me to paint like a senator or something like that, I'd be more cautious about the silhouettes in terms of getting the likeness. I would still not use, you know, like a tracing. I don't like having to use, you know, like tracing out the outlines. So remember, any questions that you have, you know, art related, pool related, not that I know much about it, but Georgie does, he's a pro. Literally, he's a pro. dog training related. During the break, we'll have the video of Hugo. I unfortunately didn't have the time to edit a new one, but it seems like a lot of people like that video. So a teacher once told me, imagine you see your friend from 50 feet away. Say you're walking across some, I don't know, some mall or whatever, and you recognize your friend not by the details of their face, but by the silhouette of their face. You know, that's why we're focusing. See the grit on the paint? That's from the lead white. Lead white has this property of which you can use more of it without raising the value, which allows you to have a thicker consistency of paint. But it's not always something you want to use. You don't always need that thick consistency of paint. It depends on the aesthetic that you're choosing. So if you were to have a, say like a portrait painting business, which is a question that I'm asked a lot, you have to be mindful of your materials and your aesthetic. So for example, say that I want to obtain my brightest light, but I don't want too much thickness. Then that's the case for titanium white. So I can build that light. But don't use straight white. As you can see, I'm mixing colors right into it. Not like with pastel, you can go straight white because it's difficult. You gotta build it. In some ways, it's actually a little bit easier than oil paint in that regard. Going with the orange ochre. And we're carving out the side plane of the frontal eminence of the skull. Go back to the light, add a little bit of cadmium green. Change the color variation a little bit. So this is how we carve out the planes before ever adding any details in the eyes. Now we're going to put in the shadow on the side of the eye, but we're not going to add the eye just yet. We're letting it build. The fundamentals are extremely important in painting, just as they are in anything else. Big shapes of light and shadow are incredibly important, and it's something that most people will miss. Most people that are just beginning to paint get caught up in the photographic look. Okay, so now going back to the dark brush, we're going to start to subdivide more planes around the mouth. So we're going to load up the dark brush with the Italian brown ochre so that it doesn't end up too dark. A little bit of ivory black. And this is why I like to work on a neutral gray tone, because your darks look like darks, your lights look like lights. And we're gonna go in with kind of like a cooler color. We're going to use some of the background tone for the side plane of the orbicularis oris, or sometimes referred to by certain teachers as the muzzle of the mouth. Know your color variations. Gets a little bit cooler around here. Then I'll start to pick up a tad bit more of the facial hair down here, which again adds to the lightness. You gotta see the big picture before getting hung up on minutia. That was Hugo playing with his squeaky toy. Okay, but no more detail than that. We want to build everything somewhat in the same level of intricacy. Alizarin actually turns kind of like a cooler red towards the violet. See that? It still gets slightly darker. Hey Linda, yes, this would be considered alla prima, meaning painting wet on wet. But I used the lead white early on in the painting because it kind of allows you to paint a little bit thinner towards the end without the paint lifting. I'm going to retouch the shadow color for the nose. I'll throw in now a fourth brush, which will only have basically one use, just for variation in the shadow tones. It's a tad bit cooler. And then going back with the dark shapes. We're going to paint a side plane of the wing of the nose. Be aware of the bottom middle of the nose relative to the top middle of the upper lip. This will be moved up as we continue to subdivide the shapes. Now, as I said before, we're going to move on to the maxilla. Thanks, Linda. Maxilla is right here, next to the side plane of the nose. Again, using the orange ochre, which again is a Rublev color. I think Rublevs, you can only purchase them from the website. I used to be able to buy these paints from my local art store that I go to, but I haven't really seen them. So that's the maxilla, which will of course be adjusted later. Cheekbone. There's going to be a plane change underneath. The area right underneath of the cheekbone is the most difficult because it's light, dark, somewhat light, and then it starts to get darker again. So this is why I prefer to draw this way, or as you mentioned, work in alla prima, because I get to draw with color. I don't start my students off doing this. Just like a pool analogy, you don't start your billiard students from, this is all from stuff I've been taught, but you don't start your billiard students by having them break and run a table. Alla prima is somewhat like doing a break and run. And John Singer Sargent would say, basically, to anyone that tries to do a portrait in alla prima, basically he would say good luck. But, you know, he meant that in kind of a funny context, because he could do that. A lot of painters do that. Just like a lot of pool players, they can break and run a table and not really think about it. The rest of us remember every single time we had a break and run, because it happens so seldom, such a seldom occurrence. The ear, of course, is going to be a tad bit lighter, but still is going to have a shadow. Just going to go with black, alizarin, where is it relative to the nose? Fits somewhere about here. And what I do teach my students with respect to drawing is train yourself not to have to measure. You need to train yourself not to rely on measuring. And I'll make an analogy to billiards, because could be that a lot of billiard players will watch this, but kind of like trying to avoid using systems too much to aim pull shots. You can't really rely on a system too much unless you're only using, say, center ball, at least from what I was taught. Because when you add any kind of side spin, it will change the shot depending on, what, how hard you hit the ball, how much side you use, whether you use inside spin or outside spin. So the same analogy is for painting and drawing, specifically drawing with outlines. You can't just grid everything out and live your entire life with those systems, just gridding out the systems. You have to be able to kind of just feel out proportion, feel out shapes, values, let it all occur naturally. Through experience, you develop a touch. Hey, Kaylin. Okay. Alrighty. We're making his ear a little bit bigger. Don't worry. We're getting there. This is just 47 minutes. Don't worry. Appreciate your concern. You don't want to have too much information in the shadows, so I'm very cautious about what I do put in the shadows. Hey, Kaylin. No, I'm doing this from a picture that I took at the academy. I always suggest that you take your own references and have the light be isolated. So I ended up turning off one of the lights to isolate this single light source. But billiards is a wonderful game though, because it teaches you, to me it's taught me not to be reactive. In the past I would be a little bit more reactive and I'd get upset when I'm painting and things don't go my way. There's so much patience that you learn from playing, I guess, any sport in general. Now we're going to put a little gradation over here where the eye will eventually fit. Yeah, I would have much preferred to paint Georgie in real life, but I don't have a studio I don't have the studio space for that. Right behind me is a wall, so I don't have the space for it. But in the future, as we continue to grow the channel, we'll be able to afford it. Now we're going to start to add some accents for the placement of the eyes, which will bring us right into the subtlety stage. And it's kind of right on time. We usually reach the subtlety stage right before the first break. blocking in the tear ducts. Look at the distance between the eyebrows and the upper eyelid, just like the bottom middle of the nose. Look at the distance. This is something you should be able to feel out. So this will be my first little guesstimation. Upper eyelid is relatively close. So treating this very much like a sculpture. What you do to one side, you do to the other. We humans have bilateral symmetry, so it helps to be able to work side by side. And once you put in these shapes, it'll be quite obvious where certain changes need to happen. Now, for example, I know that this eye needs to get a tad bit closer. So we're going to use that as an opportunity to add in this light. And now we're going to guesstimate and keep these shapes quite simple so that we can adjust them as we go. His eyes are kind of like a brownish blue-gray, at least from what I can tell from the picture. As soon as you introduce the eyes, you introduce another awkward stage. So remember that, everyone. As soon as you introduce the eyes, you introduce another awkward stage. And awkward stage is what makes portrait painting so difficult, because we're not used to looking at unfinished faces. And it scares you. It scares us psychologically. This is what makes portraiture so difficult. So anyone that doesn't start this at a young age, one of my first portrait paintings, I was probably like, I don't know, 15 or so, not knowing what on earth I was doing. It helps to build that experience. So now obviously I know that they need to get closer. The eyes need to get a tad bit closer. So now, working with simple shape, we can do that. So here's how you do that. You use the shadows to push your shapes. So now I know that this has to go more to the right relative to the canvas. Like that. And now we can get a smaller brush. We'll get a sable. So we're moving a little faster. I usually don't get to the sables this early on. And we're going to move the sclera to about there. Yankee Sally wrote, those AI faces scare you. Yeah, that's the awkward stage. That's the awkward stage. Well, you know what it is? It's the uncanny valley. That's what can scare a lot of people. Yeah, it looks somewhat human, but it's not quite human. And that can scare you. Keep your shapes simple and easy. Like I said, I had to move all of these shapes closer together. And they may still move a little bit afterwards. But you have to mentally prepare for these things. Like in billiards and in any sport, you have to mentally prepare for challenges. Playing a race to 9 and being down 3 games, you can still win. So you have to mentally prepare so that you don't become too timid or basically choke. Which happens to everyone. With me, it happens all the time. Not so much with painting, but sometimes. Now, like I said, nice and simple. Now we move these shapes towards the right. It's really easy to move these shapes. Some of the gray for the sclera will be used to move the eye. Which, by the way, is why I started with a lighter value for the eyes. Because I knew that the placement might need to be adjusted. Sometimes it doesn't. There's also a little bit of photographic distortion on my camera. I can tell right away. So this is why it's important for you to be able to work from life, so you can spot when there is distortion. Otherwise, you don't know. So again, I'm painting them closer to one another. The orientation of the eyes is going to be incorrect at first because I am moving them. Okay, we've got, oh, that is an hour. So we will be taking a break. So those of you, hold on, we got a question. You need help with mixing. The best thing I can say when you're mixing the color is to keep it as simple as you can. So for most of what I did with the skin tones, it was just white, orange ochre, and then brown ochre, Italian brown ochre, which I know those are difficult colors to get. So consider a simple palette like the Zorn palette. So titanium white or lead white, as long as you have a white paint. Red, yellow ochre, and black. So just 4 colors. You could also use something as simple as titanium white, burnt sienna, and black. Or you can use ultramarine blue, burnt sienna, and white. Okay, so now we're gonna go ahead and take a break. Hopefully I answered the question adequately. We went a little further than I needed to in the first part. Now obviously don't let the eyes scare you. It's still an unfinished stage. Not even placed 100% correct. But it is simple enough that we can move them around and start to generate more of a likeness. So this is the point where we will take a break. For those of you that may be new, I put in the video of Hugo, my Shiba Inu. I know, I need to create another one, but these things take time. So when we return, we will get into the subtleties stage, and we will break out of the awkward stage. Of course, right now we're pretty much in the awkward stage because there's a lot of stuff that we need to do. We moved the eyes closer, so that's good, but we're gonna need to push everything now towards more specificity. So I will be back in just a couple minutes. Hopefully you enjoy the video of Hugo during the break. Alright, we have returned. Now it's time to continue to develop this painting. And we're going to move from the eyes now down towards the nose and the mouth, particularly with the mouth, because that's the thing that needs the most attention, or the shape that needs the most attention. So before that though, adjust this little shape here. So anyone that needs help with color, working with color with oil paint, one thing that'll help you a lot with color, something that I wasn't as aware of before, is to use pastels. Pastel can teach you a lot about color, especially when it comes to mixing color for portraiture. Soft pastels or oil pastels, whichever. But again, burnt sienna white, ultramarine blue is a really good combination for simple skin tones. So you must know the basic planes of the face, the basic plane head, and then know how your model deviates from the generic human head. This is very important when it comes to especially things like alla prima. There's also a bit of paint handling that is something that you develop over time. Meaning the thickness of the paint, the brushes, switching around between different brushes, in addition to seeing shapes. It's a lot of stuff to keep track of. Hey Linda, you were 64 when you started, no worries. So much you can learn, even in 1 year's time. A big one is to keep yourself as far away from your painting as you can, an arm's length away ideally, so that you're not up close to the painting. So when you're up close, things can be distorted. So once again, we're painting the portrait of a professional pool player named Georgie. A link to his Instagram is in the description box of this video. So definitely go check him out. He is an excellent pool player. And believe me, anyone that's achieved a high level of skill in pool is just out of this world. It is such a difficult game, much more difficult than people think. And for me, it's one of the greatest honors to be able to not just paint portraits of people, but to be able to paint portraits of everyone, including professionals in their field. I understand in some sense what it's like to put in so many hours that it goes unnoticed to most other people. Hey Giselle, you were having fun following along using soft black pastel, charcoal. Oh, cool. Yeah, limited palette for sure. That's how I introduce color to my students. Of course, you can do color study with more color. That's how I was introduced to it, but it's a very difficult way to learn. And it's definitely not what I recommend for something like portraiture. Like I said, we would move up, because I knew right away that placement was incorrect. Still relying on simple shape. For color, you really want to internalize it to the point where you just kind of feel out what color to use. You're not relying on a recipe to create any colors. You just kind of feel them out. For example, I'm adding cerulean blue and I didn't even think about it. Just to cool down this color. Italian brown ochre is a kind of a darker, cooler version of orange ochre. These are again earth colors. Cerulean blue will cool that color down. Thanks, Linda. Thank you. So a little bit of ultramarine blue is what I put on this brush earlier. Now, of course, this was once a good color note, but now we can adjust it. It goes closer to the green. Ultramarine blue. See how I'm cross mixing on the palette? Okay, that's pure intuition, because I'm not reaching for a color that's already on the palette. I'm reaching towards the colors that are in the mixtures themselves. Again, taking great care with the edge quality around the terminator line, which is the plane that differentiates light from shadow. Now we can add a little more subtlety to the color, whereas this was once a good color note to start with. Now we see that it could use a little bit more orange ochre, which you could do away with orange ochre and use burnt sienna. But burnt sienna is a tad bit cooler than orange ochre, just know that, depending on what brand you use. What you do to one side, you want to do to the other. Now it starts to round out a little bit, and we're starting to depart from the awkward stage. Thanks, Linda. Here's where you gotta be very, very conscientious about your thoughts. You don't want to think about, say, you know, of course I'm painting someone, you know, that is a very notable figure in his field, but I can't let that cloud my judgment. Now, of course, I titled this YouTube video, you know, painting a portrait of a professional pool player. So I'm showing you how I work through that. You know, the mindset. You have to be very, very aware of the tendency to think of his eye, his lower eyelid, for example, his tear duct, things like that. You can't think that way, because if you do, the painting, it starts to become too you're putting too much pressure on yourself, basically. And pressure is a good thing, of course, in sports, in all fields, but you can't think that way. You have to think the shapes surrounding one another, the planes of the face. no matter who you're painting, you cannot let the idea of portrait of so and so, be clouding your judgment, because that will cause a certain kind of like blindness to things you would otherwise see clearly. I appreciate all the likes, everyone. This is a Silverbrush. It's a Silverbrush brand. Pure red sable, cat's tongue, size 4. Not made from cat's tongues. It's in the shape of a cat's tongue. And thanks, Linda. Oh, thanks, May. I'm glad you like the sculpting aspect of this. Yeah, there is a lot of kind of 3D thinking involved. Making sure that the eyebrow is not too sharp. Still too soon for any kind of detail in that. Hairline's a little more square than I have. Gonna have both a dark and a light brush for the hair. Oh, thanks, Augustin. Welcome to the stream. Visalia wrote, if it wasn't for stress, I wouldn't have no energy. Oh yeah, I'm always thinking in planes. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, I'm probably going to sell some t-shirts in the future about planes. Probably some funny ones where I'll use airplanes. Hold on a second. Oh, it's a little dark. Thank you. Sorry about that. So we got a print. My wife made a print. So I got a little bit of a bump on the camera. Let's check it out. So she bought a printer. So this is a print of the wheat that we did. You can't really see it. I'll show it later, but my wife made a print for us. Let me adjust the camera again for you. Well, that's gonna make the video a little more interesting. Let's fix this. Yep, somewhere about there. Okay. So anyway, we got an art print. Someone was asking about art prints, I think 2 weeks ago. Now, in order to differentiate between the shadow shape and the dark light, we're going to have to change some of the colors, and we're going to push the shadow a tad bit towards the green now. I'm sorry for kicking the camera. Hey Charles, welcome, welcome. You wrote Open Studio Live Models in Alexandria. Yeah, that's the one that someone commented on my my Instagram. Workhouse Art Center. Yeah, I'll be there tomorrow actually. At 6 p.m. I'll be there. Which is why my live stream, everybody that's watching these streams, for tomorrow it will be at 12 Eastern Daylight Time, 12 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time, as opposed to the regular 4, because I'm gonna go paint from life, basically. Thank you for sharing. It's great to have you here, Charles, Leonard. I will be there. Hopefully, I'll meet you there. Charles, question: do I need to bring an easel tomorrow, or do you supply easels? I couldn't quite tell from the registration. Linda, yes, I can totally recommend a good pastel. I like to use Rembrandt pastels, soft pastels. The only problem is if you drop them, they break really easily. But yeah, Rembrandt soft pastels. But of course, I'll be experimenting with others. We'll do some with oil pastel again. We've had a lot of questions about oil pastel. Yeah, so Charles, if you're still here, please let me know if I have to bring an easel. That would be really helpful to know ahead of time. I'm using a, this is a, gosh, what are these things called again? A Julian easel. Plein air, but I'm using it for my studio setup, so it'd be kind of difficult to move. French easel, that's what they're called, French easel. I'm using a French easel for this. I could bring it, but it would take a lot to move it around. Hey Charles, oh, it does have studio easels. All right, excellent. Thanks, Charles. I'll definitely not have to bring my easel. That is awesome. Yeah, exciting news, everybody. I'll be able to paint from life in Northern Virginia. What is up? I hope that they're long poses, like, at least 3 weeks long. That would be nice. But if not, I understand. So I know personally how difficult it is to try to keep people going to an art group with longer poses. People tend to want shorter poses most of the time, from what I've seen. When I used to run art groups like that in Maryland. background brush once again. You need to look at the peak of convexity for the edge of the head, and it looks like it's right here. So everything else tapers inwards from there. Peak of convexity is right there. And there is some photographic distortion on the picture. I can tell right away that it's fish-eyed. This part of his face right here is fish-eyed, which throws the axes of his eyes a little bit off. And of course there's distortion on pretty much all the pictures that I've used. So what you want to do is be aware of basically the fisheye effect on your photo references, because if you accidentally paint in the photographic distortion, that can be a problem. And I see it in a lot of student work, a lot of beginners. So what you got to do is filter it out mentally and look for the information that you can use, like the distance between the eyes and the perspective, things like that. Obviously now I know that this eyebrow should drop a little bit. You can't be afraid to make these changes. Remember, keep your shapes simple and easy. Now we're adding another plane change here, along with some color. So as you change something, take it as an opportunity to add something new. In this case, I'm developing the edge of the concavity of the eye socket. This is going to be what is going to accelerate your alla prima skills. Alla prima means painting wet into wet, or painting all at once, which is what alla prima means. Try as much as you can to only look at shapes. This is a really important thing. Get to the point where you can abstract the shape so much that, to me, I just see kind of like almost like a jelly bean shape here. A jelly bean that's being pulled towards the bottom right. And then casts kind of a darker, almost square-like shape down here. And again, I appreciate all the likes, everyone. We've got about 21 likes. It's a lot. Thank you. One of the most useful colors in oil painting and pastel, I will tell you, is yellow ochre. That is probably now my favorite color in oil painting or pastel. Yellow ochre is such an important color for portraiture specifically. Hey Jonas. So question for everybody. What is your favorite color? You could answer your favorite color to paint with or just your favorite color. My favorite color in general has always been brown. But my favorite color for paint is yellow ochre. And it's nice because it's not so expensive either. But it's a incredibly valuable, really important color to have with portraiture. So question for everybody, what is your favorite color? You could answer your favorite color to paint with or just your favorite color in general. Mark, what's going on? I hope you're feeling better. So glad to have you here. Mark is an exceptional student of mine who is one of the closest now towards reaching apprentice level in the online classes, who is also a PhD in history. Mark wrote, no color can compare to cerulean blue except perhaps cobalt teal. Just for that comment, I will use cerulean blue. I dedicate this to Mark Watson in Georgia. Cerulean blue. That brush stroke was for you. And yeah, as you can see, cerulean blue is a really useful color. Patricia, the like button is should be right beneath the picture of my head on the live stream. But don't feel obligated to have to press the like button. I appreciate you simply just being here. Okay, I'm glad you're over the COVID. I hope the eye thing works out. You left the world of Jerome for the world of Renoir. Cool. Yeah, it's kind of hard to pick between the favorite colors, I would say. I agree with you, Patricia. So May, your favorite color is purple. Use Naples yellow regular together with yellow ochre. Very cool. Yeah, my wife's favorite color is purple. I think she said her favorite color is lilac. Of course, I don't think I know. Her favorite color is lilac, purple. The darkest shape for the concavity of the eye socket lies right here. And it starts to get lighter up there. Orange ochre, yellow ochre. the side plane of the face. Now we're going to switch back to the sable and continue to adjust the drawing. We use the planes of the face to adjust all of the drawing nuances. A challenge for someone out there. Can anybody figure out, and of course you have to do this after the stream ends, but will anybody figure out how many times I use the word planes in this live stream? Or any of my live streams? Or any of my videos in general? How often do I use the word planes? It's probably a lot. Thanks, Patricia. I'm glad you're enjoying the work. Glad you're enjoying the videos. So in order to get the paint to flow a little more, I'm adding a little bit of Neo Magilp Medium. See how it makes it a little bit thinner. But yeah, yellow ochre is a vital color for portraiture, as is alizarin crimson. Very, very important colors to have. So Mark, here's a question. Do planes exist, or are they made up by the human mind? As a general concept, they're made up by the human mind. But in reality, they do exist in the sense that, well, we live we experience a three-dimensional world, but of course the world itself is multidimensional. Existence itself is multidimensional. String theory, I think, has what, 11 dimensions? General relativity has 4 dimensions. But we live and we experience 3 dimensions. So the three-dimensionality of planes is something that we make up based on how we experience the world. Just like the numeric system is base 10 because we have 10 fingers. If we experience the world in multiple dimensions other than 3, then of course it would be different, and maybe the whole concept of planes may also be different. But a plane is nothing more than a sheet of paper existing in 3-dimensional space. So if you think about a grid, think about a 2-dimensional grid, XY grid, existing in an XYZ grid, which is the 3-dimensional grid. But great question. I like it. I like the question. More questions like that. See, that's the kind of question we'd get from a PhD. Bring on the PhD questions. Let's get philosophical. Hey, Caselli wrote, a plane head should be my logo. A plane head. It's plain to see. The plane head. Wow, we're almost 10 minutes away from the second break. Time goes by pretty fast. So again, shout out to Georgi professional pool player that I met at the Billiard Academy, of which I'm a member of, in Alexandria, Virginia. Billiard Academy named Streetlights Billiard Academy in Alexandria, Virginia, run by Dion Chapman. Shout out to you. I took a picture of Georgie. And, you know, from real life, I'm not painting a picture that, you know, like that's online from AZ Billiards or something. I took this picture. So it is a great honor to do this painting. So Mark, you wrote, people commonly say start with 5 values in painting the planes, or is it arbitrary choice based on reality? Linda, your favorite is blue. Awesome, awesome. 5 is really good because it is one more than 4. But in all seriousness, 4 is actually one of the better numbers based on the 4-color theorem. Again, coming from the world of math, you can color any map with just 4 colors without 2 shapes sharing the same color that are touching. So 5 allows you to color, 5 values allows you to cover this entire mapping of the face with just 4 values, and then you add a 5th for the shadow. That's why 5 values is such a useful number, because it allows you to use 4 in the light and have 1 remaining for the shadow. Bring it on. I like these questions. Subtlety even now within the goatee. All of these planes were developed in conjunction to one another and not in isolation. Bring it on. So Sam, Jonas, blue is your favorite color. Oh, I'm glad you like the portrait and the colors. Can I do a portrait study, a painting by Peter Paul Rubens called Head of a Young Man? Yes, of course we can. But of course tomorrow we have a Caravaggio, and Friday with pastel we have a Rembrandt. But I can add Peter Paul Rubens to the list. And Giselle, you could always go fractals. Yeah, of course you can use fractal geometry, which is a shape within a shape. And if anyone hasn't looked up what fractals look like, they're really cool shapes. Shapes within a shape that basically extends onto into infinity. And remember, there are different types of infinities. For example, the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the whole numbers can go on to infinity, but what about within 0 and 1? We have 1/2, 1/4, 1/8, 1/16. You can divide that into another infinity. So there are different infinities. And fractals are somewhat similar in the sense that there are different infinities, infinite number of combinations of the same shape within itself. Fractal geometry, really cool. Bring it on. I like these comments. Now the facial hair itself has a shadow. And just like clockwork, when we return, we will be adding the so-called impossible subtleties. Big picture, don't ever forget the big picture. Always focus on the big picture before getting hung up on minutia. As Nelson Shanks, the teacher of my teachers, would always say, Always work on the big picture. And he would say the details are nothing. The hard part is basic. And right here, we're eliminating the photographic distortion from the camera. It's actually twisting his mandible out that way. And I can almost tell if you put the shape of the head in a box and you take a picture, the photograph will overdo this angle right here due to photographic distortion. It's not the camera's fault. The camera is a camera. Blame the photographer. So adding a little bit of blue. There's always a tad bit of blue on the edge there. Uh-oh, here we go. Alrighty, another question. Another PhD level question. Let's go. Let's see. Oh, Mark wrote, who is the most overrated and underrated representational painter? You mean like currently or over history? Let's see. Linda, you hope a lot. So overrated, you think Robert Liberace? Underrated, think Mary Cassatt. I might end up running into Robert Liberace now that I'll be going to painting groups here, so I gotta be careful. Plus, Robert Liberace is a great guy, so I can't really say anything, about him. I've met him a couple times in Philly. Really, really great guy. So I can't really say much. Hey, Hansel Dog. So Jeremy, welcome. You wrote, just curious, are you very consistent with your work, but have you ever needed to take breaks to refresh, say a week or so to refresh? I feel like I can get too into my work. Oh yeah, oh definitely. I gotta take breaks often. And that's why I took up, one of the reasons I started taking billiards so seriously is because I needed something else in my life to balance me. I played pool for 2 years, but I had already been painting at that point for like about 14 years. I gave you 14 years of my life. So yeah, I had to do something else because otherwise, it consumes you. But painting will always be my everything. It's what I did as a child. I used to draw cars and stuff like that, but it's always been a part of me. It can't ever go away. But it does need breaks. Just like I'm gonna have to take a break in 4 minutes. So Mark, you would say post 1850. Okay. Yeah, yeah, no, we gotta, since I live so close to Robert Liberace, we gotta be careful with that, because I may even have a viewer or so that knows him. Of course, I know him, but he probably doesn't remember me. But yeah, so post 1850, most overrated to me is Andy Warhol. I would say, I'd say Andy Warhol for me is the most overrated. And let's see, not to say that anything wrong with Andy Warhol. I think it's just everything is Andy Warhol. No, I'm lying. Picasso, obviously. One of the first things somebody told me when I walked into the academy, Tito, you told me this. was like, it was like, I didn't know you were Picasso. And Picasso's name is somewhat of a household name, just like Einstein. So when when a kid is like super duper smart, everyone says, that's my young Einstein. And the same thing when someone does art, they say Picasso. Picasso's overrated. I'd say he's the most overrated artist of all time. And I know he's post 1850, right? So, yeah, Picasso, most overrated of all time. Most underrated is Bouguereau. Come on, that was an easy question. Most underrated is Bouguereau, and not say any living artist, not just yet. They're both dead, so I can say that. Yeah, most overrated is, in my opinion, most overrated is Picasso. Most underrated is Bouguereau. For the general public, I'm not saying for artists because artists know who Bouguereau is. We don't know how to pronounce his name, but we know who Bouguereau is. But anyone on the street, you say the name Picasso and they know who Picasso is. Overrated. I'm not saying he wasn't an artist, but he's overrated. And Picasso took classes with Bouguereau, and some of the artwork that he did, some of his student work, is signed by Picasso, and a lot of people say Picasso knew how to draw. He just chose not to. Of course, he didn't know how to draw. Not in the sense that someone that went to an atelier, studied 4 years with Bouguereau, was an apprentice with Rembrandt or something like that, dedicated themselves to it, and then decided to break away from it. Van Gogh was exceptionally better at drawing than Picasso. So yeah, that's what I think. So Mark, you like Guernica, but not much else. Yeah, of course, Bouguereau is not everybody's thing. Picasso's dad was an art professor in Barcelona. Yeah. Oh, look at that! The hour just passed. I don't want to take a break though, but I should, just for the continuity of the streams. I don't feel like I need to take a break, but I will force myself to take a break. So not to upset any Picasso fans out there. Some of you may even own a Picasso. So when we return, we'll get to the subtleties of the face, the super subtleties. Meaning we'll probably be using the sable brush for the majority of what is remaining in this painting. So this is the point where we will take a break. I really appreciate all of the questions, everybody. So I really like these questions. So we're going to take a break and we will return in just a couple minutes. So hopefully you will enjoy the video of Hugo once again. The all-amazing Shiba Inu. Alrighty, we are back, and of course, as usual, I will change the light sensitivity so you can see the painting with a tad bit more clarity. And of course, in order for me to do this, I will have to wear a visor. So I recommend everyone don't paint with such a bright light that might hurt your eyes. Always wear a visor. So this is a hat that it's covered in my dog's hair, but I cut off the top to turn it into a visor. Dali, Giselle Dali, I think he was a great artist. I don't think he's overrated. He definitely could draw. I do like Dali. He's not a bad artist at all. And May, definitely I like Turner as well, especially his dramatic seascapes. Pretty cool. Let's go back into the background now and start to adjust this so that we can basically add the finishing stuff. So I want this a tad bit a little more towards the blue. Really appreciate all of you watching the stream. Again, thank you so much, Georgie, for letting me paint your portrait here on YouTube. Thank you, Dion, for sharing this stream as well. For everything you do with streetlights. And appreciate you, Charles, from what's it called? Workhouse. Look forward to meeting you tomorrow. So Charles Leonard, thank you for joining and answering my questions about tomorrow's painting session at 6 p.m. Mark, you were looking at some of Turner's drawings. Yes, he was excellent in perspective for sure. Yeah, he was definitely an excellent drafts person. I like this background color. It goes pretty well with the ear. Of course, the ear is a little too light, so it's a difficult value to adjust, but we can do it. Believe it or not, everyone, this is, I think, now the 5th week that we've been doing these 3 streams a week. Really exciting to be able to do this. I'm really happy to be back on YouTube doing these. A lot of practice goes into these paintings before I do them. Not just practice of the same, reference, but practice paintings. I'm learning other materials. I'm not going to give too many spoiler alerts, but yeah, I'm learning other materials as well, not just not just soft pastel, oil paint, and acrylic. Of course, I have the most experience with oil paint, but I'm learning other media as well. So lots of practice goes on off camera. Oh, nice. I'll definitely look at Turner's watercolors. I don't think I paid as much attention to his watercolors as I should have. Soft edge, sharp edge. It all depends on what you're trying to bring into light, literally. Okay, so now some planes for the hair. I tend to use the skin tones. Hair is actually a lot easier to do with pastel, with soft pastel, than it is with oil paint. So usually just leaving the initial tone works best. So be mindful of that. You don't need a lot for the hair to look like hair, as long as you have light and shadow, things around it, around the hair, planes of the face. There we go, I used the word planes again. All of the surrounding planes will basically finish, optically finish those areas for you. Now it'll start to get a tad bit lighter over here. And now we can cover the pinky area, even though I'm probably going to have to rest my pinky there. Tad bit more green. It says cadmium green. Trying to get the right value. I think that's pretty good. Of course, my vignette, the areas that I leave unfinished to complement the areas that are that have more attention. My vignette's going to be down here, of course. That's where I'll sign the painting. Still paying attention to the peak of convexity, which is right there. Cheekbone. Angle of the forehead. So you're working from the outside in the beginning, then you work inside out, then back to outside in. All comes full circle. Here, it should get a tad bit cooler, though you don't see it too much on the reference. So I'm going to get the middle value brush, and of course the lead white. Cross mixing. That is mixing from one area of the palette to another. Tad bit of cerulean blue. The lead white's too heavy, so I've added a tad bit of Neo McGilp, which is the medium. All right, another question here or comment. Patricia, do you use any mediums or clean your brushes or just wipe them off? I clean them somewhat with Gamsol, but not fully. That's why I have separate brushes, a light, middle, dark, background brush. And remember that one brush that I said I would use? Oh, and of course the sable brush, which is the detail brush. And then of course that one brush that I said I would only use for like one thing. I'll probably use it for another thing. And yes, I use Neo McGilp medium, which is a thixotropic medium, which means it is like a jelly. So there it is, Neo McGilp, like a jelly. It's just beneath here because it would fall off the palette if I put it there. All right, Mark, bring it. Another question. What is the biggest scam in art materials or tools that people should know about? Da, 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 da. What is the biggest scam? Oh man, we're getting serious here. The biggest scam to my knowledge, in my opinion, is not so much a scam really, but I would say is probably I'd say this is tough because I don't want to get in too much trouble here. Let's see. To my knowledge, I have to say it is the paints themselves. Even though I am using Rublev, these are expensive paints, and I am using lead white. You could do this with Winsor Newton or with Gamblin, which are the cheaper ones. Winsor Newton and Gamblin are like Toyota and Honda. They're affordable, although these days nothing is affordable, but they are affordable. But they get you from A to B, and they're pretty fun to use when going on a road trip or something like that. But think about something like a Cadillac or a Lamborghini. Do you really need that Lamborghini to get from A to B? Some would argue yes, because it's not about miles per gallon, it's about smiles per gallon. But you really don't need it. It's not a necessity. It's a want. And yeah, I'm not sponsored by any paint company, so I can tell you, I think it's the paint. That's the biggest scam, basically. And sorry, Winsor Newton, Gamblin, Old Holland, but buying a $200 tube of Michael Harding lead white or Michael Harding Creminence white is not going to make you a better painter than buying a Artist Loft $20 student grade titanium white and putting in the time. That's the biggest one, I'd say. And it's not so much a scam. It's more just marketing. And yes, there's more pigment in pigment to oil ratio is greater with more expensive brands. But in the end of the day, it won't make that big of a difference. So yeah, that's my 2 cents. Yeah, it sounds like I should start selling Yupari brand oil paint and then call it a scam. No, I just shot myself in the foot with that one. But I do this because I care about everybody here. I'm not trying to, deceive anyone into buying one product over another. Is it the same in the billiards world? I don't know. I think there is a difference in the billiard world. I think because, well, deflection is a thing. Like, there's a certain physics that's involved in it. So, I don't know when it comes to billiards. Yeah, Yupari brand oil paint. The only paints that aren't a scam. The only paint that isn't a scam. That's funny. I tell you, I don't think that brushes are a scam because I think they're very important with oil paint. However, with acrylic paints, you could use whatever brushes you want because they dry right away. Oil painting brushes have a specific task. They need to carry as much paint as possible, yet still be able to apply a soft touch. Otherwise, if they're not able to apply a soft touch like this sable here, they would be shoveling the paint around. And if they were not able to carry that much paint, then you would have to work harder to put in a plane, a shape of value. But yes, to all of you watching out there, don't tell the don't tell the paint companies what I said. Don't do it. We're all friends here. Um, and honestly, if you want me to do a stream with really cheap paints, I've already done it. I've done a bunch of paintings with Artist Loft acrylics. It's the cheapest I think you can get. And don't worry, we'll add more subtlety to the eyes. Hey, Peace Rose, welcome, welcome. Thanks for watching from Studio City, California. I got a special shout out for someone. And let me go to my messenger. I got a special shout out to Grace Murphy from Facebook. If you're watching this, thank you so much for letting me know that the Wednesday stream wasn't showing up when I posted the other streams. She let me know right away that one of them wasn't showing, and I actually forgot to put public on the stream. I accidentally typed unlisted. So without her, I would have not noticed until the last minute that the stream wasn't public. So thank you so much. Oh yeah, I guess that'd be funny. I don't know if I could say that out loud, but I agree. That'd be a fun. Yeah, let's do that. I don't encourage such things, but yeah, I mean, that could work. Let's see, someone out there will count how many times I say the word plane in any given video. Now, when I say that the paint is the biggest scam, I don't mean the same for other forms of painting. So, for example, people that are doing work on cars or watercolor, I cannot say that the same is true with watercolor, of which I know almost nothing about right now. And the same thing with people that do murals, people that do tattoos, different types of painting. Right? I cannot say the same uh, for that. Let me just make that as clear as possible. And again, thank you so much for all the likes. We've got 32 likes now. That's a lot. I don't think I usually get that. Well, thank you, all of you that have left a like. Now we're using alizarin black, a little bit of not umber, brown ochre. So now we're adding more subtlety. And I think this is a quote from Robert Liberace. He said, if you break things up too early, the overall form gets lost. It's from one of his DVDs from like 15 years ago or something like that. So if you break things up too early, the overall form gets lost. All right, another question from Mark. Bring it on. Which dead painter would you like to have a conversation with and why? Good question. Yeah, that's a good question for everybody. So, assuming the painter is deceased, who would you choose to have a conversation with and why? And let's assume that even if they spoke a different language, you could understand and speak with them. So, I would choose Rembrandt because he's Rembrandt. But I would like to have a conversation with him about his thoughts on painting itself. And it seems like he really loved he was a painter's painter and he really enjoyed painting, not to please people, but painting what he saw, what he felt, in of course, a representational way. So yeah, I would like to ask him what his thoughts are in basically the art of painting. I mean, I think for most of us, it's painting is learning how to see, and the more you learn how to paint, the more you see the world. You see the world differently. You start to see color relationships. You see planes. You see perspective. You see anatomical, detail. You see so much more when you learn how to paint. So I would wonder what his perspective is on it. And I may be disappointed in knowing that for Rembrandt it must have been more or less a job, but I would like to know. I mean, painting is my job too, but I enjoy doing it. I enjoy doing these streams, and for me, this is a medium. Video is a medium. Painting on a live stream like this, which is almost kind of like a podcast in some way, is, for me, it's an art form. And so Rembrandt, I would like to ask and have deep level conversations about, why he paints, what draws him towards it, what drew him towards it. Not so much his technique, but what drew him towards it. Well, very good question. So it's an open question for everybody. And here's where it's going to get a little tricky because I can't rest my elbow. And I have a maul stick somewhere. There it is. Alright, for these finite details. Using just one sable brush, I had to clean the brush slightly with odorless mineral spirits. And this maul stick is so I can rest my hand. Rembrandt also just seemed like a really cool person in general. Like he had a lot of really cool ideas. Especially how he painted the Night Watch. Even though he, the people during the time didn't like how loose he painted the Night Watch, it's still one of the greatest paintings of all time. And he received so much criticism for it because it wasn't the status quo. And I face the same issues. Painting what I want to paint. And it's a very real thing. Well, luckily, I think most of you like portraiture. And to me, portraiture is my favorite. Even though you can't see it on camera, I'm adding a touch more of the blue. And now we'll add the pupil. And on the contrasting the question of what's the biggest scam, how about what's the most useful thing in painting? And for me, it's the easel. That you have a good easel that can support any canvas size that you wish, and have the painting close to 90 degrees. Of course, 90 degrees exactly would be ideal, but I can't do that with this because then my head would be completely blocking the image. So Mark here, I don't think he was that successful in painting naturalistically, but to my understanding, he's one of the first to focus on painting the values of colors more accurately. That makes sense. I agree. So you wrote down Oh, above it? Oh, I missed it. You're right. I think it would be interesting to talk to Leonardo da Vinci about painting from life versus nature. It would be interesting to hear his thoughts on the importance of painting uh, the way we see. Yeah, that would be pretty cool. I think Da Vinci probably would have focused more into kind of the aesthetic as opposed to what we actually see, I would think. But I can't really speak for Da Vinci. Oh, right. You were talking about Da Vinci, not Rembrandt. I missed that. My bad. But yeah, I think Da Vinci would be interesting to talk to because, well, he was a genius in other fields, not just painting. So he would have had a lot of stuff to say about a lot of stuff, so to speak. So, yeah, Da Vinci would be pretty cool to talk to. If anyone has seen the Futurama episode on Da Vinci, I think he was actually he was an alien or something in Futurama. So you wrote another question. What is the biggest problem you see with beginner paintings, with raw beginners paintings? Light and shadow, number one. Undeniable light and shadow. They lose light and shadow. That's the number one thing I see with beginners. For sure. So let's see. Another question you wrote was the whole smoky sfumato thing was supposed to replicate soft edges. I would say, yeah, I would think so. So Giselle, you wrote, heard he, or there are less than 20 paintings that can be attributed to him. Oh, wow. And Mark, you wrote, let's see, he had the idea and was heading that way towards naturalism. I'll thank you for sharing on your Facebook feed, Peace Rose. Oh, cool. Thanks for sharing, Mark. Very, very interesting questions. Yeah, Da Vinci would be pretty cool. Can you imagine like a podcast on Da Vinci? I'm sure there's gonna be an AI podcast on famous people from the past. I'm pretty sure that that's gonna be a thing. AI generated Da Vinci thoughts or whatever. But it'll never be completely accurate because they'd have to time travel to do that. Yeah, and hopefully we'll be able to paint some musicians, or like I don't know, other people that are professionals in other fields as well. That would be pretty neat to do. Of course, traveling to take pictures is kind of difficult. but it can be done. These are really subtle values that you wouldn't notice right away. So I typically will rate an image or an angle in level of difficulty. And this one is on the higher level of difficulty because his face is closer to centered. And of course the shadow is perfect because, well, I did the best I could to isolate the single light source, but the lighting is mostly frontal, so there's only just a little bit of shadow there as opposed to all this being in shadow. So these things make it a tad bit more difficult. So Mark, you wrote, are you able to live stream photos of images of musicians from... I can, but I want to know them. Like I want to, like, I took the pictures of Georgie. Like I want to, like, be part of the photography. To me, it's more fulfilling to be the one to take the picture. Of course, painting from life would be the ultimate, but I mean, just being able to take the picture myself, to get permission from the person to do this is, you know, it's what I'm after ultimately. Because there's enough paintings of celebrities on there. Everybody does a painting of Taylor Swift or of John Lennon or whoever. But it's different when you know them, you take the picture in person. Yeah, I would violate YouTube. Yeah, of course. And Mark, yeah, artists can paint from AI generated references. I don't think that's that big of an issue. As long as there's light and shadow involved in it, I don't think it's that big of a deal. And paint other artists, of course, yeah. I would say for me, it's more fulfilling to paint someone that I have met, to know the person. It just adds something extra to the entire process. Yeah, that would definitely say that it does add something to it. Also adds a bit more pressure to the painting itself. So you have to be okay with handling pressure. And then you understand that it's just like any other painting. Yeah, Peace Rose definitely. There's like a kind of an emotional connection too. But we have to avoid that kind of thinking though when you're painting. You know, it's in the back of your mind. You know who you're painting, but you have to train yourself to not let that be what determines your judgment. You don't want to distract yourself from looking at shapes. But yes, it's a dream of mine to, like Nelson Shanks painted, like Margaret Thatcher and painted one of the popes. I think it was John Paul II. He painted Princess Diana, and he knew them. It wasn't like he just painted a picture that someone else took. He was there when the pictures were taken. He did work from life too, but of course, he couldn't work solely from life. Let's see. You had AI try to create a two-part reference. It was comically bad. That's funny. I don't even know how to use AI. I don't even know. Alright, let's see here. A couple more things to change. Okay. So based on the perspective, the mouth is fish-eyed on the original. So the mouth is too like that on the original. But I think I may have overcompensated. As John Singer Sargent would say, a portrait is a painting where there's a little something wrong with the mouth. Now, if Sargent felt that way, then now we know, how complicated that is. Hey, Alder. Welcome, welcome. So everybody, tomorrow's acrylic Caravaggio is earlier in the day, 12 o'clock my time, because I heard of a studio near me where I can go and paint from life, but the time conflicts with my 4 p.m. stream. So I'm going to go check out that place tomorrow. Therefore, the acrylic live stream will be 12 o'clock p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, as opposed to 4, which might actually benefit those of you that are staying up past 2 a.m. or so, to watch these streams. And look at that, we are just at about 6 minutes, from 5 minutes from the hour, which would be the final hour. But the painting was mostly done about 30 minutes ago. So now we're just adding the little highlights, rounding things out here and there. We'll sign the painting at the end. I'll cover this part, which I might as well just cover now. Really appreciate all the questions, everyone. Where does the time go? Now we're pushing these final lights. Piece Rose, you set your studio set up so you can take a photograph of the subject and paint from the photos. That's awesome. Yeah, one day I'll have a studio like that. One day. Well, awesome. But very chill thus far. Everything is smooth sailing. And thanks to all the training, we're able to do these paintings in one session, which is not that easy to do. It takes a lot of practice, a lot of training. And luckily I went to a studio in Caminati when I was young. I'm still young, but I was younger, and I studied with Paulden Hamilton in Baltimore. Well, in Timonium, but close to Baltimore. Alder, you wrote, do I travel with my paints at times? No. Well, yeah, tomorrow I am, but I haven't gone to a painting group in poof. Well, actually, I went just a couple days ago, but before that, I didn't really paint, like travel to go paint much at all. But I will be traveling tomorrow, about 18 minutes away, to go paint with an art group here in Northern Virginia. So we're just at about the 3-hour mark. So everything I've done up until this point has been just finesse, really, just fine-tuning little shapes. Nothing major had to be done during this last part of the stream. And that's because we spent a lot of time working on the big picture, not getting hung up on minutia. We used the natural pigments for a lot of skin tones, but again, you could use anything really. You could use Winsor Newton, Gamblin, Artist Loft, acrylics if you want to, and tomorrow will be acrylics, of course. Here's my vignette. The stuff that I leave unfinished, I let the brush strokes show, like that. And kind of like Sargent would kind of have more of a longer neck. I mean, we kind of have that effect already in this painting, but we're gonna dress up the vignette, letting some of the background show through, like that. Initially I was going to sign here, but I'm trying to basically dress up the vignette. And what you can do is, and let's balance that out by putting that shape here. What you can do is get a dry brush to add more effect. But essentially this is just to vignette the painting. This part is up to taste, really. It's up to you how you want to vignette. Hey Charles, don't forget to account the traffic. I-95 is terrible. Yeah, I'll factor in the traffic for sure. So Peace Rose, all you need is a white background and a camera. That's a good idea. Although I typically like to have a grayish background. Whee! Northern Virginia traffic. Here we go. This is definitely a vignette that I like. It's a very common one, but if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So just because this is a common vignette doesn't mean that it won't work for our purposes. And I'll get a dry brush to blur that part out. Only with oil paint. Everything else, acrylic would have not allowed me to do that. Okay. We're pretty much there. Pretty much there. I'll use the fan brush to get rid of some of the glare. Okay, and that's the painting of Georgie, professional pool player who has graciously allowed me to paint his portrait here on YouTube. Now all I'm going to do is sign the painting. I may soften a few things here and there before I take it to the Billiard Academy. But that is about it. 3 hours of painting time. A little bit over 3 hours now. Well, not factoring in the break, I guess, but this has always been a goal of mine to do. Painting of a professional in any field, really. As long as I am the one that took the picture. And I can still sign over here. Adding Neo McGilt to the brush. So this is the point where I'll ask if there are any last minute questions. I'll sign down here. And instead of 2020, I'm going to put 24. But of course, the ultimate way to document this painting is, well, it's on YouTube. Okay, all right, there it is. Signature and everything. Georgie, if you're still here, I hope that you liked the painting. Those of you that are friends of or close to Georgie, hopefully you liked the painting. Remember, everybody, I'm not perfect. I'm not a camera. There will be some differences, probably notable differences to you, between the reference and the painting. But as always, my goal is to interpret visual information and let my heart guide my brush. That was my artist statement, I don't know, like a decade ago. But that is it for this painting. Once again, thank you all so much for joining in. I really enjoyed all of those fantastic questions. Like I said before, I will do maybe a couple little things on this painting before it's over. Like this was too sharp. Fix that as the last minute thing. Somebody needs to take the paintbrush away from me. And yes, we have done it, everybody. We have done it. Don't forget, tomorrow's stream will be at 12 o'clock p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Thank you, May. Hey, Giselle. Oh no, I didn't video what I did. I just posted the final painting on Instagram. But no, I didn't video anything. Thank you, Peace Rose. And thank you, Patricia, Mark, May. Yeah, that was just a last minute little shape there I saw when I stood up from the chair, or I moved back. Last little changes. Alright, that is about it. Thank you all so much for watching. I wish you the very best. Again, thank you so much, Georgie, professional pool player Georgie, for letting me paint your portrait. Again, a link to his Instagram is in the description box of this video. I wish you all the very best, and I'll see you tomorrow.